is finally working. I was having some kernel panic problems with Google Chrome, but I think I've fixed it. I think using Safari for this is the way to go. So here we are. The last place that I left off, we were doing species counterpoint, and I was right around, I think I had just started second species, and it kind of cut off because of another one of those kernel panics. So here we are. I'm going to continue with this. I actually did a couple of these because I didn't know that it had stopped, but I did 2 of the species 2 counterpoints. And then and we can just talk about them, or I can do another one. But this is kind of what it looks like here.
Now let's get back to second species and take a closer look. While still using the same whole note Kanti, the added part will now be a half note. This means there will be 2 notes in the added part to 1 note in the cantus. The only bar where we use a whole note in the added part is at the end, since cadencing on a weak beat is less conclusive, all other things being equal, than stopping on the strong beat. The first note in every bar here should be a consonance, as in first species.
Okay, so the idea here, it's just like first species, where the strong beats have consonances like I've written here. Here's a 6th, a 3rd, a 6th, a 3rd, a 6th, and an octave. Those are all still consonances. But you can have a dissonance on this second beat, on the beat 3, or, a weaker beat, quote unquote. You can have a dissonance there if it's a passing tone like this, where it falls down stepwise, or if it's a neighbor tone like this, where it steps up and then steps down, or steps down and then steps up. Those are the only 2 places that you're allowed to have dissonances at all. So we keep the first species counterpoint rules exactly the same, and then you can basically take a first species counterpoint like this one that I have, which starts here. You can do this and then just add weak beats. The only thing is, if they're a third apart, like these are, you can add a weak beat here. So that's okay. This is a 6th, this is a 7th, and then this is going to be a 5th. This 7th is justified because it's a passing tone. So the thing to look for is if this note and this note are a third apart. You wouldn't be able to create a passing note with these 2 notes being a second apart, or these 2 notes that are second apart, or these being a 4th apart. You can't create a passing note. The only thing that changes from species 1 to species 2, the only thing that makes species 2 unique, is that if you were to create a first species the way we have here, you can repeat notes. So there's an octave, which is still consonant, and here's a 6th, which is still consonant. You can do this because now you can create a neighbor tone, A, G, and then back to A. So that is okay to create the same note. In fact, it's the only way to create a neighbor tone. This is a lower neighbor tone, and that's an upper neighbor tone. That's it. So you can really just do this by creating, by creating first species and then altering it to second species. But these are the 2 that I had created. Here's an 8th. I created a passing note here, and here I kept that note the same so that I could create a neighbor note. This is what it sounds like. And I created this harmonic tone to let us know we're in minor. I'm not sure what the rules are about that exactly, but I think it's fine. Here's with the cantus firmus up in the treble. I didn't create these here. So instead of doing this, let's just do it together. The only thing that's weird about Canis Firmus being up top is that some of the rules change. You have to end on Do technically. So we're in G minor, I think, is the best way to look at that. So that has to be my note, that or that one. So there you go. And to really make this sound good, I'm going to create that, a leading tone into it, so that we know we're in G. Oh, but it's second species. So I'm going to have to move that over. So let's just do this together. I like starting on a rest here to give us a little bit of break. And again, an easy way of doing this to figure out what a third or a sixth is you just go a third above this note, which is B, or a third below this note, which is E. And both of those are thirds or sixths. So an E here is going to create a third interval, and a B underneath, which would be like right here, would be a sixth. But it's also a third above because sixths and thirds are inversions of one another within an octave. And we're not too concerned with that. So B flat would create a sixth. I think that's just fine right here, right? Start on a consonants is probably a good idea. I can follow this down. If this is stepping down and this is stepping down, the intervals are the same, so that's still a sixth. I can create another note here. A, oh nope, that would create a fourth. So I cannot do that, okay? So I'm going to create another consonants here. Instead of thinking about this note, I'm going to think about this consonants first. So again, a third below would be B flat. A sixth below or a third above would be F. And so for the sake of not continuing with the sixth pattern, I'm going to create a third there, B flat. And then I have to think about what this note is. So because these are a step apart, I cannot have a passing note or a neighbor tone. So this has to be a consonance, therefore. If these are the same note on strong beats or they're a third apart, I can create a passing or neighbor tone. But they're not. So I have to create another consonance here, which leaves me with an octave, a third. I can't do a fifth or a sixth because I've already got that here. I can't repeat that sixth. Or a fifth, which would be B flat. But then I would be repeating this note. So I'm really stuck with either an octave, which is F, or a third, which would be D. So, you know, there's not a lot of choices here. I'm going to create a low D for a third and see how that goes. I'm not loving the way this looks so far, but maybe it'll justify later on. We'll see. Maybe I have to change things. Okay, so let's continue with our first species patterns here. A third below or a third above would be C or G. So let's try a G here. There you go. And that creates a nice passing tone if we choose to do that. We can continue with these thirds there, stepping down, stepping down. Here's a third up here. So we have a B flat. We have a choice of a G or a D, really. I'm gonna continue down with the D here. See how that starts treating us. A third here would be A, and a sixth would be E. We can also do an F to create a fifth. Might give us kind of an interesting sound here, since we are going to F sharp eventually. I'm going to try it. Sure, why not? This one I have to get rid of because we're not there yet. And then A, we have either an F or a C for the most part. So I'm going to create an F here so that we can get a neighbor tone in here. And then I'm going to create an F sharp for our leading tone. There it is. Okay, now is when we can go back in here and look at all these things. So here's a great opportunity for a passing note and a dissonance. And whenever there's an opportunity for a dissonance, I'm going to take it. Okay, so here we have a third. That means this is a fourth from here to there. And then we have a new interval there of a sixth. So that should sound just fine. This is a stepwise again, so I have to create another consonance here. So we have, we can't do a G because that would be repeating this note. We can do an E for an octave. Okay, go down here. This is a possibility. And it looks like a nice possibility. But we also already have, okay, anyway, or we could go to a C, which would be all the way down here. I don't love how much that leaps around, so I'm going to stick with the E. The other opportunity, a possibility is to create a fifth here with an A. That's another possibility, you know. Either one of those works. So let's see how it goes. We'll leave those there for now. Okay. Again, here's a third, which tells us we get a passing note. And now with that passing note, I'm loving that E right here. But let's see how they sound, because ultimately that's what's important. Again, a third passing note, great. And then we get a neighbor note. So we can either do an upper neighbor note or a lower one. This is a C over here. So this is a fifth, which means that this would be another consonant, or this would go to a G right here, which would be a fourth, and then into a third. So I kind of like the fourth into the third instead of another consonant. So I'm going to get rid of that. Our line looks pretty good here. It's all stepwise. It's got a lot of dissonances, and it makes sense. This is the only one that looks not so good. It looks like it just came out of nowhere. And our high point is doubled. So maybe we need to reconsider that note, which means we need to reconsider a lot of these notes. So to get another high point in there, we could also just start with an octave here. That kind of solves that. And now we have a high point that's nice. So I'm not, let's try it with this A and let's see what it sounds like, because ultimately that's what matters. If you guys want to see these intervals here, we've got an octave. We've got, we've got a sixth here. I'm trying to figure out if I can just do this way. Okay, this is a third. This is a third, which means that this is a fourth. This is a sixth. Means this is a fifth. It's not great. I don't know how we. Oh, that was the only kind of option we had, huh? Yeah. It might be somewhat direct moving out of the fifth into this F to D, which is a sixth, and that makes this a seventh. Oops, seventh, and then into a third, or I mean a sixth. Excuse me, fifth, and again, this is kind of. Well, I don't know. So here's another fifth. So we have parallel fifths there, which, we need to fix that. And then we have a third here, another third, because it's just raising the note by a half step. Oops. Okay, so there it is. Now, once we've seen this, I don't love this. The only other option here is to create. This is the one where we said this could be an E, which would make another consonance, and that would be an octave. So I do like that better now, because I don't like that direct fifth of going from A and then leaping out of it into in the same direction as this one's moving. I think that's going to sound a little weird. Also, this is no bueno, no bueno. So I say we change this note, which means we have to change this note too, I think. So if we move this, if we move this down to, we can't do an E again. Maybe we could. And then let's change this to another consonants now. So instead of it being a fifth, let's change it to a consonants of either a D or a G. You can't do a D because that would be repeating notes. So we can do G, or we can do some sort of B flat. But I think this will be just fine. It kind of like sits up here on this G a couple of times, which is the tonic, and that's not, it might screw with our resolution. It might like make us think we're resolving when we're not. I don't know. There's obviously a couple of ways of doing this that are they're going to be different. Oh, that means we have to change this note too, huh? Look at that. Okay, so we can actually keep this a fifth if we just change that other note. So I'm going to do that. Fifth, fourth, third. Now this is a third. I'm going to change that to a lower tone so we're not hitting that G a bunch of times. And now this has this nice walk up. E, F, F sharp. We could even make this an E. I don't know. I would want to make this like an E sharp, like we're in harmonic minor. But that probably doesn't suit well. I'm not sure what the rules are on that, but that's what my brain goes to. Let's listen. Yeah, I mean, it kind of falls the way that it has a similar feeling because it's this whole second line is falling the way this one is. So I don't like totally love this. I don't. I would want to change these two notes maybe instead of this one continuing in the sixth pattern of sixth, sixth, sixth. I kind of want to change this so that it goes to a third there, and just kind of flip those two notes around. That takes away this ability for this to be a consonant or a dissonance, unfortunately. But it can, you know, that's okay. It can be a B flat. No, it can't be a B flat because then it would, maybe. That could work. This would be, okay. Okay, here we go. This could be like that. I'm sorry, third. I'm not sure. This might sound better. Let's listen. That's nice. That is better. I mean, that feels better to me. It's a little less singable, but so I mean, I can sing it. So it's not terrible. I think this is probably the way to go for this one. I did this a couple of different times in different ways. There's a lot of options here, but anyway, this is like generally second species. When the Canis firmus is on the bottom, it's far easier, far easier. The other thing I was thinking about is that this just talks about the dissonance being on the weaker beat, not on the stronger beat. So, you know, really what you can do is take this Canis firmus like this, and this didn't change. There we go. You can take this Canis firmus, and I don't know exactly the rules on this, but it's fun to mess around with, and ultimately that's what matters. Is take this Canis firmus and then make it whatever kind of melody you want, as long as the dissonances, quote unquote dissonances, are on weaker beats. Then I think it works out, and it kind of makes it more fun. So you can, you know, mess with this a little bit. Okay, so that's basically, that's species 2. I don't know where my Google Hangout thing is, but I'm assuming it's still working. Okay, so that's what he talks about in this whole video. There it is. There's talking about this is static, this is dynamic. Okay, balancing something. He wants a nice mixture of leaps and steps, which I think we did pretty nicely. He's got a harmonic minor thing going on here, it looks like. And that it has independent curve and contour. He does another one. There you go. Mix of neighbor and passing tones. Great. Let's look at his. He's got an octave here. Then he's got a sixth. And then he moved to a third. There's his fourth. And then into another third, fourth, and then a sixth. That's nice. 2 passing tones. Great. And then he jumps all the way up to octave here, which is kind of what we did, isn't it? We did it in a different place, but right when he's on the E, we went to the octave also. That's exactly how we solved that problem. So we're doing almost the same thing here. He's doing it with flipped intervals and things, but okay. Then he's got a sixth here, and then he goes to a third, which is exactly what we did. Boom, boom. And then he goes, what does he have here? Then he has a fifth. I thought that this was direct. He's leaping into a fifth. Maybe it's because they're coming from opposite directions that it's okay. But I thought that that was a direct fifth if your upper voice leaps into it. I don't know. There's his fourth, and then he and then he's got his sixth here. That looks like an octave. Then he's got a fifth, which again looks like direct to me. And then he does the same thing we did, which is a leading tone. I didn't plan on that at all. Let's hear what he says.
After the scale, the leap in bar 4 pushes towards a new register.
Oh, you know what? He probably already played it.
The line then stays in intermediate register before rising again to the...
Let's see if we can hear this direct fifth. Right here. And there. Yeah, sounds fine. Okay.
These momentum. Once again, the peaks of the two lines do not coincide. Notice also the succession of the highest notes, E flat and F in bars 4 and 5, and the high G at the end. When successive peaks rise step by step like this, gives the phrase a nice overall sense of direction. Now here's an example with a few problems.
Ah, I love these. Parallel fifths, I heard that one. That one felt weird. That felt weird.
Most obvious weakness here is between the 4th and 5th bars.
Boom.
Parallel fifths create a very noticeable hole in the texture.
We knew that.
But the parallel fifths between the first beats of the 1st and 2nd bars,
yeah,
although they aren't quite as prominent, also stand out when you listen carefully. They would be better avoided. Other problems occur in measure 3 and in the bar before the end. Here, dissonances are approached and or left by leap. This creates a kind of distraction for the listener.
Yeah, totally.
You're irritated by
it's not as rich sounding.
If you don't hear these things,
okay,
once again, that requires a lot of practice.
Okay, so we kind of just did this. So here's his remembrances.
Step. Parallel fifths or octaves should normally be more than 4 beats apart, and sing and play.
There it is. Sing and play. Okay, cool. So that is that's it. That's the second counterpoint idea. I'm going to stop this video and then do another one on third counterpoint. So I hope you like this. And see you next time.